What you're seeing right here is the culmination of all my efforts in art throughout the last about 2 years, I'd say. There's a bit more in certain aspects I'm going to show you, but generally this is everything I've been up to. Now this is essentially what was going to be my art exhibition for my art program at my IB school, but due to certain unforeseen consequences we're all facing, I'm stuck doing it at home. But that's not going to stop me from showing it to you guys, and it's not going to stop me from giving the experience that I wanted about explaining my crazy and zany worlds to everyone who is curious enough to look at them. And that's kind of what we're going to be doing today, is going through everything I've created over the last 2 years or so and talking about everything in detail. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting ride. So I hope you stay tuned, and let's get into the first pieces here. Now for my art course, you needed to have a sort of overarching theme with a title. Now the title and theme I chose was called Fun, because I think that pretty well captures the kind of work I do. I mean, you've got giant paintings of crazy characters, you've got a comic book, you've got, yeah, that's a Minecraft build, you've got some really awesome pixel art, you have there's a DS there for a reason. You've got terrariums, little clay guys that resemble action figures, and you got some cute little greeting cards, including a bird flipping the bird. So, oh, and a coloring book. Yeah. I'd say this exhibition pretty well captures the idea of fun, and we're gonna be looking at every piece and kind of explaining how I made them and all that stuff. Now, I'm not gonna bore you guys with the artistic stuff like, I chose to put a mandala in this corner as a rejection of typical balancing conventions, because none of y'all care about that. I'm just gonna kind of talk about why I made stuff and how and all that good stuff. So let's get into it right now. Starting off here, we have a series of pieces, as in these are considered one piece, even though there's obviously two of them, and this is part of a series I call Cornucopia of the Mind. Now basically both of these are supposed to sort of encapsulate how my ideas and creations make me feel. Now obviously I did not have these ideas when creating, well, I had that idea when creating that one, but this one was kind of just me doodling and trying to figure out a meaning afterwards. So I call this one Overwhelming Overwhelmedness, because I mean, look at that. That just makes me stressed to look at. And the idea behind this one is kind of like how all my ideas, you know, fill my brain, and there's so much going on I never have time to do anything. Because I mean, look at this. I'm trying to make YouTube videos for everyone to enjoy. Meanwhile, I'm trying to do all the art stuff. I'm trying to play with my dog wherever he is. He's being a good boy. I'm trying to clean my fish tanks. I'm trying to like write short stories. Like, there's a lot of ideas going around in my head, and I think this pretty well encapsulates how you could possibly visualize that. This one is called Thoughts of My Own Reality, and it was a response piece to Emily Carr University, which I got into thanks to all this art. And it was what keeps you up at night, and the answer was Thoughts of My Own Reality. Now what is pictured here is a sort of end of the universe thing in my own little fictional world. I'm not going to get into everything, but because, you know, spoilers for ideas I'll never realize, but basically this is sort of an end of a world event, and it's centralized around this planet, and this face planet is a reoccurring theme and stuff related to that. But that's the first main piece I want to show you guys. Now the next thing I think I'm going to show you guys are the terrariums. What you're looking at here is the clay army. Now these terrariums were actually not initially created for my art program. These were just terrariums I made for fun because I like terrariums. I think they're cool, you know, plants in a jar. How can you go wrong? But essentially this was done as a way of including and sort of displaying these little clay characters I've got. Now these clay characters are mostly all based off of the pixel art you see behind you. Not all of them are, like for example, the robot doesn't have any pixel art. That was our mascot for robotics this year. There's no pixel art for the face, but generally these are reoccurring characters or like ideas I had. Now, I chose to display them in terrariums because I thought it was really cool, and it sort of gave them a world to inhabit. Now, the original display idea was to have the Minecraft thing as a backdrop, and then these guys would be like coming out of it, and it would be like they're coming in little like ships away from their world, and I don't know, I thought it was cool because they're sort of like locked in little biospheres, but some of them, as you see, have started to escape. And that wasn't really planned. Originally, I was just gonna have them all in there, but not all of them fit, and I thought, I'm gonna include all these guys. Like, why would I leave them out? There's a little night guy, he's cool. But yeah, generally the idea there was just to create a sort of a fun set of characters, kind of like action figures almost. And because I've always wanted to have little figures of my own characters, and now I do, so it's pretty cool. And I just put them in terrariums temporarily. I'm gonna be taking them out once this is all done, except this one. I think they look pretty cool in here. That's probably my favorite display. And I don't mind, you can see Tranquilren the lizard there is in this little asparagus fern terrarium, and I like that one quite a bit. All right, let's move on to the next piece, which is gonna be, let's do the greeting cards. These greeting cards do not have a name. Now, these little watercolor cards that I am quite proud of were actually not included in my art exhibition. Pretty much because I couldn't think of really, you have to have an artist statement explaining the meaning and stuff like that, and I couldn't really think of anything good to say for these guys. But essentially the idea with these guys is that they're very simple renditions of my characters. You can see there is the bottle. The turkey. So over here, he's actually a kiwi, but he looks like a turkey, so that's why he says kiwi and he's flipping you off, because he's like, screw you, I'm a kiwi. And the smoking sun. Now that's a reoccurring character. It's actually this guy screaming, but I also draw a smoking sun pretty often. You might see him over here. Yeah, that's kind of like, I always do the screaming moon and the smoking sun. That's kind of one of my themes. So I kind of incorporated two characters into one because I'm like, why do I have two suns? So whatever. But his name's Josh the Sun. He's a really old character. I made Pixlr of him like back in grade 7 and he's existed ever since. But yeah, these were just sort of made to be like little fun watercolor projects because I wanted to try a new medium. And I was thinking to put little like greetings or like quotes or something fun inside, but really all I've got is in this one, I gave it to my dad as a birthday card, and it was flipping the bird to the virus. I heard your channel gets like censored if you say the actual name of it, so I'm not going to do that, but I don't know if that's true. But and then this one could be like, thoughts and prayers, and this one's like, I don't know, high as a kite. I don't know, but that was the idea with those. Not much to say about them. Let's move on to the next piece, which I guess will be the comic. The comic is named I think it's Birth of the Devil Burger. It's something like that. I'm pretty sure it's Birth of the Devil Burger. I'm going to try to get as much of this comic strip in here, and I will include a link to my DeviantArt below, which will have all these things there for you to get in more detail. But actually, we can see it pretty well here. Now, this comic was created as a sort of backstory to one of my characters. Originally, this was actually going to be a much bigger project, but I mean, it's already pretty huge if you look at it laid out on the wall. And considering the amount of time I had to do this, I'm actually quite happy with how it turned out. Now, I like the style, and you're probably wondering, who's this elephant trunk guy? Well, that is actually, I mean, you can tell at the end here, this is the backstory of the Devil Burger. Now, it's kind of cringe, but I'm not going to make you sit through all my ramblings in my own fictional universe, but basically, the idea is this is the god of overindulgence. It's my own sort of, like, he represents the sin, he's the son of the devil, and he was doing things the devil didn't really like. So he was in this little prison here, and then this guy comes to take him to his dad for proper punishment, but then his older brother comes in and swipes him and actually lets him escape because he thinks his dad's an idiot. And I mean, if you're a god, if you're a creature created to cause chaos, why can't you do that? So he gets free, he breaks free, he summons Devil Kid, whose design I really like. He's got a mouth eye, it's cool. And then he possesses a burger as a disguise. So I thought it was fun to make sort of an interesting backstory that actually explains, like, because there's no reason for me to explain this. Like, why can't I just have a devil hamburger? But you know what? Why the hell not? And it's not really bound by any logic or reason, because I hate backstories where it's like, oh, he's a genetic experiment gone wrong, because that's boring. Like, demon-possessed hamburger, that's where it's at. So that was that piece. There's not really any deep meaning behind it. It's kind of just me wanting to create a bit more story to these characters and show that they're not just random ideas that popped in my head. Well, they are, but, whatever. Let's move on to the paintings next. This awesome painting is titled Ocean Beyond, I think. This piece is titled The Chaos Lands. Now, originally I planned on these paintings being as part of a series, but I felt they stand pretty well on their own, and I wanted to discuss them on their own, so that's why I made them as separate pieces. Now, both of these paintings are some of my favorite pieces I created because they showed me sort of stepping out of my comfort zone. If you've noticed, most of my stuff is pretty small. You've got small clay figures, pixel art's small to work with, you've got small drawings, you got small comic, like everything's pretty tiny in terms of like the workspace. Obviously the comic takes up a lot of space, but individually each panel is very small. Now, these paintings were based off of these two drawings here, and these were originally my pieces, as in I was going to display these. These aren't part of my final gallery, I just put them here because I wanted to show you guys kind of where it came from. And I am so glad my art teacher recommended me to print these really big. So essentially what we did is we printed these on canvas. This is the image underneath this. Like, this was printed really big. And then what I did is I painted over everything and then Sharpie outlined. Originally I used black paint, but I actually thought Sharpie worked better and felt better and all that stuff. So I Sharpied everything in, I painted it, and it looks really, really dope. I love it so much. These are some of my favorite pieces I've created, and they all started here. And what I like about this is that these were this one right here was my first piece. Like, technically I did some of this pixel art first, but this was like my first thing that made me go like, huh, this is the art I want to create. Because originally I wasn't even going to use the pixel art as my theme. My theme was going to be kind of centralized on like the stories of my weird characters, and I'm kind of glad I got away from that, though I'd like to revisit it in the future. But yeah, these were just massive paintings, and they were a lot of fun to do. This one took a long time, but I mean, that burger is gorgeous. Like, I don't like to, you know, say, well, I'm so good at art, but that is like, this is a gorgeous painting. And the black border really brings it together, because before the black border was on, I liked this one more, but now I think I like this one more. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm like nostalgic towards it, because it was my first kind of thing that led into all this, but I don't know. This set of simplified pixel art is titled the Pixel Pals, and this larger set is titled, I can't remember, but it's something along the lines of a variety of assortments, creatures, and things. I don't know, it's a really long title. I'm obsessed with long titles, aren't I? There are 2 sets of pixel art on display here. This main one is a series of, I believe, 10 paintings. Not paintings, like pixelation creations, and these are all based off of enemies from Earthbound or Mother 3. This guy was based on a Hydro Flask. I'm sure you can kind of get that. Yeah, the idea was to create all these characters in a very like clunky and blocky style, because my style is kind of like just not like, I don't know, like it's not trying to be super nice. I'm trying to be aesthetically pleasing. I'm not trying to reject that, because people who make stuff intentionally unappealing, well, that's not appealing because it's unappealing. Herpadur, but the idea was to kind of create something a little less streamlined and a bit more clunky, and I think I definitely achieved that here. And all the backgrounds were essentially done by taking the color of these guys, inverting them, and seeing what would contrast the most. That wasn't always the case, but that was generally the case. And you know, they all work pretty well. I think the Kiwi, the Sun, so we got Turkiwi is his official name, Josh the Sun, Screaming, much better than his like, you know, calm form. Botello, the Devil Burger, Bagaron, the Bog God, Mashiendo, I'll just name them all. This Cubozoid, that's one of the Straw Men, and we got the Meteor. And I don't know, I like them all, but I think the Bottle, the Sun, and the Burger are probably my favorites, because those are like the 3 original ones, so they fit in the most, and I think they're probably some of the coolest. In addition to the pixel art, we have this one. This is a little series that I intended to have displayed. Essentially, there was going to be 5 of these on either side, and this would be centralized in the middle. And what this is like a smaller representation of these characters to see how simple we can go. And I've done some even more simple things than this, using like well-known characters, but when these characters aren't well-known, I think it's better to do them in this sort of style. And you can see there's the Mushroom, the Burger. You recognize all these ones. The only one that isn't included down here is the Knight, and that is because he was too large to fit in here. You can see him there, though. He's trying to like hide back with his pixel art guys. He's like, hey, why wasn't I invited to this party? But yeah, that's all of them. And obviously, to fill up empty space, I added a few other ones. Like, for example, we got a watermelon, a pineapple. That's my Discord icon and my YouTube icon, and Old Man Soda Can, who I quite like a lot. You'll also notice that the Straw Man is different here. He is blue as opposed to red. And there's actually a series of these guys, but I just thought I'd change it up to be fun. Right now, I'm opening up my Nintendo DS, and that is solely to provide a transition into my animation. This animation was created in Flipnote Studio, which is an old DS program. It essentially lets you doodle and like create little animations in a very clunky and simplistic style. And I wanted to create a sort of clunky animation because, again, plays into my style of nothing being perfect, and it fits the characters pretty well. I didn't want to create anything serious or like, you know, crazy, because I mean, it's Flipnote Studio. There's not, like, it should be like wholesome and simple, and that's kind of the idea I wanted to go with. What I ended up doing is, originally I planned on making like a series of things, including my characters. It was gonna be the bottle dancing, then like the sun was gonna deflate because he was like becoming like, he was losing his stress because like all his work was over and stuff like that. But I eventually just went with the bottle dancing one and had the serpent or the bog god come in, and he was like, hey, can I join you dancing? And then they danced together. And it's stupid and it's simple, but I quite like it. This awesome Minecraft poster here is based on my Minecraft build, The Serpent's Isle, and rather than showing you the poster, I'm going to play some footage of the video on screen. Now, this is thanks to the Seuss shader pack and Optifine, and thank you to Jagger for recording these clips for me, because my monitor is a TV and it is terrible, so I couldn't actually get any good footage of this. This is a screenshot taken a bit earlier than that, I believe. Yeah, this is a pretty cool build. It was essentially, the idea was to create sort of an area for my characters to live. And I did that by creating a super like populated and like, or super dense like with nature environment. You've got coral on the land and on the beach, which I really like, and you've got this awesome sea serpent, hence why it's the Serpent's Isle. Not to be confused with this serpent, they are actually different characters. Don't worry about that. He's like the guardian of it all. In the center, there's a castle, and if you go into the castle, there's like a little cave, and it's pretty cool. This was just a fun build to make, and I don't think I'm done with it yet, to be honest. I think once I get a better monitor, I'm gonna be making a video of me building like a village in it, because behind the main like build itself, like what you're seeing right in the front, behind those mountains, there's like a sort of valley, and I really wanted to put a village there or something, but I don't know. I'm satisfied with this build, but I don't think it's gonna be done for a while because I think it has a lot of potential left to it. Moving on here, we have Surrealist Adventures Throughout Reality, a coloring book from the realms beyond. And what this is, it's written and illustrated by me. You can see the printer screwed up my name in the end because I had to write it in with pen. This is a coloring book of a bunch of my surreal scapes, as I like to call them, that didn't make the cut at becoming final pieces. Essentially, I doodled them in my sketchbook, but they never became like an actual realized piece like this, and I thought it was only right to respect them in creating a coloring book. And the motivation for a coloring book kind of came from the fact that when I was doing these two, people everywhere were like, can I color it? Can I paint it? And even my friend Edward painted the eyes on that guy, the magenta. They weren't originally that color. I'm kind of glad they're that color because it looks pretty cool, but that was just him, you know, screwing around on this thing. And I realized, like, people have a lot of fun, you know, like, people have a lot of fun with this art. It's really fun. People want to color it. So why not? And every time I see a coloring book nowadays, like for adults, I guess, I don't know if this really could be considered for adults, but it's always like patterns or something kind of lame. I mean, if you like that, I'm not trying to shoot that down or say my art's better, but I thought it'd be cool to provide some like monsters and like cool like scenery to color. And that's essentially what I did with it. Now I'll show footage on the screen of all the pieces that are included within it because I don't feel like taking that down and going through it. But it's pretty cool. There's a 2-page spread, and the 2-page spread one's actually pretty interesting because it was a cut piece. It was called Red World originally. I changed the name to Above and Below because having a piece in a coloring book that is named after a color kind of forces you to use that, so I didn't really like that. And if you look at it, it actually works up like right side up and upside down. It still looks somewhat like reasonable, so that's what I like about that piece. But that piece didn't actually make the final cut, but it did in its own way because I didn't really want to leave it out. But yeah, the coloring book also features a little description for each of them, kind of playing into my world. So I describe like, oh, this is the edge of hell or some dumb thing like that. I'll probably include a PDF in the description or something. I don't know, but I'll have links to all the photos on my DeviantArt, and I'll probably include the descriptions with each of them in that. There's also a cute little intro I wrote, which honestly has no purpose because you don't submit like the full piece. I just submitted a photo of each of the drawings and like the cover. Like that's all you're supposed to submit. Like I wasn't just supposed to add the PDF, which is kind of weird. Maybe I'll get asked for one, I'm not really sure. But that's all the pieces of art I have created in this last year or so. I know it doesn't seem like a lot when you like think about it, but it really is.